Welcome to Beacon of Speech. What is Beacon of Speech? You know what? Today, Beacon of Speech is anything you want it to be. I'm Fred Hunt. Across the table from me is Ted Coley. Hello, Ted Coley.
Hello, Fred Hunt.
We are broadcasting again today from the Rock and Roll Break Room. I'm looking at Janis Joplin, Blondie, Eagles, Bob Dylan, Bachman Turner Overdrive 2. How many of those albums on the wall do you have, Ted? Do you have the Simon and Garfunkel? You have Eagles Live.
I actually have none of those albums, believe it or not.
You don't have Eagles Live?
No.
How do you not have Eagles Live?
I know it sounds hard to believe, but even though I like a lot of that music up there, right. I have none of those albums.
Well, that's stunning to me because, like I said, it's the Rock and Roll Break Room because we don't have a TV, we don't have a radio, there's no audio recordings, but there are album covers nailed to the walls with... Are these carpenter nails, would you say? They're not any sort of nail that you would use for any kind of interior design. Yeah. It looks like something you would use on a 2x4. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah.
All right. But, and away we go.
Now, those are like, what do they call them? Finishing nails? Or?
Oh, yeah. The ones on that wall are finishing nails. These are carpenter nails. Those are more for drywall on that wall. This wall is more carpenter nails. Well, we're Amish and we're gonna build ourselves a barn. So, let me tell you a story, Ted. Yesterday,
It's story time?
It's story time, and we're gonna talk about me, Fred Hunt, because it's all about me. I'm gonna be very shallow today. Yesterday, I was very bummed out. Car problems. I had problems trying to upload Beacon of Speech number 19. We're now on Beacon of Speech number 20 today.
Wow.
Okay. But Beacon of Speech number 19, I couldn't get to upload. It was the second time I couldn't get to upload. I'm still upset that we tried 2 or 3 weeks ago to do the live webcast and it crapped out. When I'm on vacation next week, that's my number one priority.
So there's basically been a string of things not working.
Yes, for me. And I could tell you about my car, but it's boring. And it's not that it's a secret, but you would doze off, you'd fall out of your chair because you'd be snoring. Okay? So, I'm coming to work today, and even before I saw you, I was just bummed out. All this stuff's on my mind, and it's really the minutia.
So even before you saw me, you were bummed out?
Oh, yeah, yes.
So that makes it sound like when you see me, you're going to be bummed out.
I'm always happy to see you, Ted. But I was stressing about the minutia of life today.
Usually you're not bummed out until you see me.
That is, well, not that I see you, but I'm not bummed out until I get to work. When I see you, it's always a joy. It's like a rainbow from God. Okay? But, so I'm driving in today, and I'm stressing about the minutia of, life. And I have the radio on. It's set on AM 850, which is ESPN radio, right? And I'm just like, you know what? I don't even have an outline for Beacon of Speech. I haven't even typed anything up. I haven't done anything. What am I going to talk about? Right? And I said, maybe Ted is sick of me. All this self-doubt. Right? Ted's going to be like, oh, Fred, you didn't do anything. I'm out of here. And he's going to throw the headphones on the ground. And he's going to be like, Beacon of Speech is over. This is our last Beacon of Speech. And I shouldn't be thinking about that for our 20th show. I should be like, 20, yay! We actually did 20 shows that nobody listened to. Right?
So is 20 like any, is it like, that's not silver, or
no,
what is silver, 25?
They said from 1 to 25 is, everything has something. And we could look it up online, but of course, the radio show's blocking our feed. But I think that the 20th anniversary might be aluminum, like aluminum foil. So we can take some aluminum foil out of...
Put it in the microwave?
We put it in the microwave and start it up, and it'll be happy anniversary. So anyhow, I'm just literally bummed out to no end. And all of a sudden, it's almost like a voice from God, right? I tune in to what's playing on the radio. I don't turn on the radio. The radio's on. And I'm like thinking, like, what's on the radio is white noise. Okay? And then
you said this is 850.
AM 850, and all of a sudden, something got me so riled up, I wanted to reach through the speakers, grab the guy by the lungs, pull his lungs out, and tie him around the guy's neck. I mean, I literally went from 0 to 100 in 1 second. Okay? The guy's name, his name is Jay Bilas. Are you familiar with Jay Bilas on ESPN?
No.
Okay. Now.
Well, no. What time was this?
It would have been about 8:30 in the morning. On the way to, so he was on the Mike and Mike show.
Okay, that's what I was wondering about, because I don't listen to 850 very often.
Yeah.
But once in a while I'll listen to Mike and Mike.
Right. So it's not the.
So they were off today and he was filling in for them?
Oh no, they were working, but he was the guest. Okay. Jay Bilas was the guest. And Jay Bilas is on a lot of shows. I see him on PTI, I see him on other radio shows, I hear him on Mike and Mike. He's all over college basketball. He's like the Barry Melrose of college basketball. When you want to know about college basketball, you go to Jay Bilas. And until today, I actually like Jay Bilas. I don't really like college basketball, but Jay Bilas, for what college basketball is not a bad commentator, right? Now, while I'm talking about Jay Bilas, you're not having any like, oh, I know who you're talking about. You still do not know who Jay Bilas is.
I have no idea, and I don't even know who that other guy was. Who was it, Larry Melrose? What?
Oh, Barry Melrose.
Oh.
On ESPN, you know how the ESPN almost talks no hockey? Almost none at all. Okay? Do you see any hockey coverage on ESPN when you turn it on?
No.
No. Barry Melrose is the token NHL guy. You know what I mean? So I love Barry Melrose. He's awesome. But, you know, he's on the wrong channel if he wants to cover hockey. ESPN does a horrible job of it. Okay? So Jay Bilas is talking, and he goes, just so you guys know, and he's talking to Mike and Mike, and again, I'm paraphrasing, I wasn't writing it down. He goes, when people say that these kids, meaning college basketball players, are student athletes, I reject the notion that they're student athletes. He goes, what they are is athletes who are students. Okay, I wasn't, and again, this is Jay Bilas, I wasn't in the Duke library studying one day, and then Mike Krzyzewski comes up, and that's the Duke coach. He didn't come up to me and say, hey, you're 6'8". You want to come join our basketball team. They knew I was a basketball player, and they recruited me to the school. Mm-hmm. So in reality, I am an athlete student, not a student athlete. And I'm like, oh no, he's going to a place where I'm going to be really pissed off really fast, right? And he goes, so I'm an athlete student. That's what you should be calling it. Now, if you're an athlete student, now I'm not talking about walk-ons. I'm talking about you are making money for the university. So you are doing the university a favor by going to their, you know, you're doing a Duke a favor by going to Duke instead of Ohio State or West Virginia or any other college team, you know. And he goes, so the room and board is part of the contract, but because I'm an athlete student, I should be making profit off of any ticket sales that are made. If I go to a small school, well, there's no profit, but I'm still getting, you know, a little pittance, right? Because I am an athlete student, okay? And all of a sudden, in my mind, I'm going crazy because I'm like, you get room and board, you get tuition, you get all this free stuff at Duke. Okay, let's just use Duke for an example because he brought it up. Room and board, tuition, blah, blah, blah. $25,000 to $30,000 a year. I guarantee you that's how much it costs.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, would you say I'm far off?
For room and board and tuition?
Yeah.
No, I don't know, but I would say that doesn't seem high to me.
Right. It doesn't say, I'm not making stuff out of my ass.
I would say it's at least that much.
Right. So, say you go to Duke for 4 years. You are starting $120,000 ahead in life versus the guy who paid for Duke by working at Domino's Pizza. Okay, I know they don't work at Domino's Pizza, but you see what I'm saying, right?
Because Duke is a major school.
Oh, yeah. To me, Duke is one step down from Ivy. You know, there's Ivy League, and then you got places like Duke and Sanford, which are, you know, like real high-end schools.
What is Ivy? Like Harvard,
Yale, Dartmouth. Okay. And so I'm already fuming, right? And in my head, I'm like, hey, jerk, you get free room and board, you get free tuition. And then Jay Bilas, the pompous ass that he is, He goes, and I know people listening at home, like he can read my mind. He goes, I know people are saying at home, he's like, well, you get a free education. He goes, so what? He goes, they asked me to their school, and at the end of the day, not me per se, because it was a different era, but they're still making more money in the Duke basketball program than, say they're like, okay, Jay Bilas, we're going to pay you $500,000 because you're part of the Duke basketball program because you are an athlete student. Well, I would be ahead of the game because I'm making more than the free room and board. You see what he's saying?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, idiot. Once you go to Duke, you don't know if you're going to be any good or not. You know what I mean?
Now, was this guy an athlete?
Oh yeah, yeah. He was a Duke basketball player,
Jay
Bilas, and now he's on ESPN. He parlayed his Duke education into being, and you'll be stunned by this.
No, he was a basketball player.
Yeah,
but he never made it to the NBA.
I don't even know if he played in the NBA. I just know he played for Duke,
okay.
And I know he's their ace college basketball guy, right?
Okay.
Like me and you, he's the ace basketball announcer, right?
Roughly how old is he?
He's got to be about 40. He's about our age or a little younger. But his degree is he's a lawyer. Okay, yeah, Ted's shaking his head. Okay? So he's talking about, don't give me this argument that they get free education. Okay, you know how many people go to the NBA, if there's 2 rounds of the NBA draft, okay, there's 60 players that go to the NBA, okay? There's literally 300 schools in college basketball. 60 players are going to the NBA. Now, he could be like, oh, well, places like Kentucky send 4 a year, or places like Duke send 2 or 3 a year.
There's just 2 rounds in the NBA draft?
2 rounds in the NBA draft. That is it.
So, every year, each team picks 2 players?
Correct.
Wow. And
so,
how many rounds are there in football? 6?
7.
7.
Yeah. So, but in the NFL, it's a 53-man roster. In the NBA, it's 15.
It is 15?
Yeah. Okay. So sometimes when you get those 2 draft picks, you don't even use both your draft picks because you like your 15 guys. But Jay Bilas, again, he's literally talking when he says these guys are athlete students. He's literally talking about 20, 30 guys across the whole United States. Whereas if there's 15 players on a roster, there's 300 Division I schools, that's over 3,000 kids. So he's talking about making the system fit for 20 or 30 Jay Bilas type players. I'm like, you know what, you're an a-hole.
So basically what is he getting at, that those guys should be getting paid?
Yeah, they should be getting paid on top of their scholarship because, like, the kids...
But right now, that is not happening.
No.
It's not legal, right?
Or... No, it's not legal.
Okay.
No, but in the old days, look, that wad of $100 bills just fell down in your dorm room. You can pick them up because my back is sore. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how they got paid. Well, he's saying that all these big programs, like the Villanovas, Georgetowns, the ones you've heard of, they're getting rich off of these kids. Well, guess what? You're not getting rich off of all 15 guys. You're not getting rich off of the 8th guy on the roster. You're not getting rich off of the teams that you play. When you're playing, that's Tina. When you're playing Middle Tennessee State, if you don't have someone to play, you don't fill that Duke building. So Jay Bilas's argument is full of S-H-I-T because I'm not going to say it. Okay, but he's an a-hole lawyer who's trying to... He's like almost like a super agent where he's like, these poor 20 or 30 guys are exploited. Okay, well, if they're so exploited...
So he's basically saying these guys are bringing in a lot of money for these schools and they're not getting anything out of it.
Except for an education. And if they were making the money, they could just buy their own education.
Yeah.
And so it just made me so frustrated because it goes back to what we were saying earlier this week. Me and you were talking personally. you can take any argument and skewer it and be like, oh yeah, I know that I made $120,000. I got $100 and just the price of a college education. I know I got a free $120,000, but I could have made $1 million in college.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh really? When you break it down to brass tacks, no, you couldn't. Because you still have, in order to ply your trade, you still have to play somebody. It's the George Steinbrenner effect. You know, George Steinbrenner would suck all the air out of the room. If he could put all the other baseball teams out of business, he would. Well, if there's a New York Yankees and nobody to play, well, then you don't have a New York Yankees. You got a team that's like, we're the best. Well, if you don't play anybody, you're not the best of anything. You're basically the Globetrotters.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of, too.
And so if Jay Bilas wants to have a super team of college basketball players who barnstorm all the time, and they're literally, they could be like Duke, Michigan State, and maybe pick 3 or 4 other schools where they want their own business model, where they're the college basketball all-star barnstormers. Well, you know what, Jay Bilas? You go ahead and do that. You create that league and leave college basketball alone. When he was saying this, there were so many holes in his argument, and if he wasn't such a scumbag lawyer, I'd be like, well, you know, he's just misinformed, right? He's like, well, it's not fair. They use these kids for 1 year and then they move on. Okay, again, in all of Division I college basketball, there's 3,000 or 4,000 kids. You're literally talking about, you know how many kids are 1 year and done? 8, maybe 9. Okay, it's unfair for those 8 or 9, but there's lots of hardship cases. That's what the NCAA is. And I'm not sticking up for the NCAA, but I'm saying it must be nice to stick up for the rich guy getting ahead all the time and then portray it as they're the ones who are suffering. Oh, that guy, he made all that money. You know, he starts out ahead of you, and when he said, I know what you're thinking, but it's not fair that all they get is an education. Oh, that must suck. All they got was a free $120,000 education at Duke, arguably maybe one of the top 20 schools in the nation. Oh, that must be a heartbreaker, Jay Bilas. Ted Coley, I was not purposely seeking him out. I was zoning it out, and I literally heard his voice, okay? I don't know that much personally about Jay Bilas. I had to look it up, right? I had to look up that he was 6'8", 225, right? I had no idea. I had no idea he was a lawyer until this morning when I heard him talking. And don't get me wrong, he's good at his job. And if you're an announcer, I guess you're supposed to spurn conversation and stuff. But I don't think you want people to think that you're just an a-hole. You know what I mean? And I've been trying not to swear. And this is the 20th webcast that we've done today. And I think I've done pretty good. Don't forget Joe Coughlin's still on hiatus. He's taking care of the twins. And I think I've sworn more in this webcast than I have so far. But I'm like, I have never heard anything so preposterous. Well, maybe Jay Bilas went to bed tonight and said, well, you know what? I got ESPN some ratings. I piqued interest. I made the needle move. So maybe he doesn't really feel that way. But when he was talking, it sounded like he felt that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I did not go into debt when I went to college because I went to a crappy college. And my dad helped me out. But, you know, I worked full-time at night. Went to school during the day, and then my dad helped me out with any shortfalls, right? I would have loved for them to say, oh, well, Fred. And now Jay Bilas would say, well, guess what, Jay Bilas? I'm not 6'8". How many people are 6'8" in this world who have a chance to play basketball? You know, basketball is not like, and this is where I bash on basketball, of all the sports, basketball is the #1 sport disqualifies you because of the way your body type is. You know what I mean? The best soccer player in the world, Lionel Messi, I think he's 5'5". Yeah. I think he might be built like you. And I'm not saying you're built good or bad. I'm just saying if he stood next to you, your body type...
There wouldn't be that much of a difference.
Right.
Yeah.
You just did not ply your trade. If you worked harder, you could have been a great soccer player. Okay? Now, you could work as hard as you wanted to, Ted. Are you ever going to be 6'8"?
No.
Were you ever going to be a basketball player? No. If you spent 20 hours a week or 20 hours a day in a gym, you were never making an NBA team because you were not built that way when you were born. Now they're like, well, Jay Bilas wasn't 6'8". You know how many people you see under 6'6" in the NBA? A handful of short guards. And that's it. And I'll tell you one of my favorite stories of all time. I know this for a fact. I had neighbors, okay? They were 6'4", 6'6", two of the best basketball players I ever saw. Well, they could barely even make the high school team because they weren't tall enough. They're like, well, you guys...
High school 6'4" and 6'6" wasn't tall enough?
No, because their game was... Their game was like a forward game. And they're like, well, you're not tall enough to be a forward, and we already have point guards who are better than you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so they weren't tall enough. Now, and I'm going to name names this time, and you can yell at me, but I've told this story 100 times. There's a guy named Sean Fergus, okay? 7 foot tall, okay? He was horrible.
This is somebody you knew?
Oh, yeah. Sean Fergus would go to my neighbor's yard. You know, they're 6'4" and 6'6". Sean Fergus is 7 foot tall, 7'0". And they said, well, you can't teach height. He made the basketball team, even though he had cement for hands. You throw him the ball, it hits him in the hands, he's like, oh, crap. He's like, I didn't play basketball when I was a kid. I didn't start until I sprouted up, right? So he made the high school basketball team, and he sucked. He was horrible. I saw with my own eyes, 20 feet from my house, he couldn't catch a ball.
Yeah.
His hands might as well have been made out of bricks. Okay?
So now I assume he couldn't shoot.
Oh, no. He could barely touch the rim at 7 foot.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, my neighbors, again, they were really good. If I had to rate them, they were probably top 15 in the city. Okay? But they weren't, for their size and skill set, they weren't the best at their position. So they didn't, they weren't on the varsity team. They weren't starting. Okay? Now, Sean Fergus was starting center because he's 7 foot tall. Sean Fergus went to Cleveland State University and said, you know why you're no good? This is what the coach said. You know why you're no good? Because your high school coach stunk. He's like, we're going to teach you to be a great player at Cleveland State University. And guess what happened at Cleveland State University? He sucked. Okay? They would throw him the ball, it'd hit him in the hands, they would bounce away because he had bricks for hands. Right? They said, you can't teach 7 foot tall. He played college basketball, got a scholarship. Okay? Now, after 4 years of sucking it up at Cleveland State University, literally like running up and down like a retarded giraffe. Okay? What did he do when he graduated from Cleveland State University?
He got a job at Iron Mountain.
No. Sean Fergus went to the European leagues. Now, the NBA scouts said, holy cow, even by NBA standards, your hands are horrible, right? Well, these scouts in, I can't remember if it was France or Spain, or Portugal. It was one of the countries out there. They're like, well, you can't teach 7 foot. They said, well, those coaches at Cleveland State must have sucked. Come to Portugal, and we'll teach you to be a great basketball player. And you throw the ball to Sean Fergus, and it would bounce off his hand. You know how many thousands of dollars he made? He had, I think it was an 8-year career in Portugal, Spain, and Israel. And I'm like, crappy Sean Fergus, who can't catch a ball.
Just because of his height.
Because he was 7 foot tall.
Yeah.
And every coach said, you can't teach 7 foot tall. So when Jay Bilas says, oh, they're athlete students, well, guess what? If you aren't 6'8", 7 foot tall, you aren't even a basketball player. You won the God lottery. So, Jay Bilas, you can suck giant eggs. Okay? Don't bring that crap around their athlete students anymore. And again, if he's just trying to move the needle and antagonize me like he did, he's been antagonizing me for 20 minutes now. It's almost like a 20-minute rant. Okay? That's fine. If he truly believes that, he is a moron.
Now, have you heard this guy before?
Obviously. Oh, yeah.
Has he ever made you this mad before?
No, he's always breaking stuff down like, oh, well, this little team, Wichita State, they play the zone. They play press defense. He's really good at breaking down what teams do, what they don't do. This team is great on the perimeter. So when he's talking about the athlete-student, I'm stunned. I'm like, I've heard this guy literally talk 100 times. He must be on Mike and Mike at least 2 or 3 times, or not Mike and Mike. He must be on PTI 2 or 3 times a year during basketball season, talking about, hey, this is why this team has a chance. This is why this team has no chance. This is why East Coast basketball is falling behind West Coast basketball. You see what I'm saying? That's why I was so stunned this morning. It like woke me up out of my stupor. You know what makes me want to do? It makes me want to take a megaphone and just do beacon of speech at the street corner. Like in 10 years, I'll still be doing it. I'll still be like inspired to do it. I'm like, well, thank you, Jay Bilas, for inspiring me today. I'm sorry to start off with boring basketball stuff. My son just got done with his basketball playoffs, and there's the NCAA tournament. Everybody's talking basketball. You want me to go to my second story, or are you done with basketball? You want to hear any more about Sean Fergus?
No.
Okay. Second story. Here's my quiz. 2 days ago,
Is this for me?
Yeah. There's the Brussels bombing, right? 2 days ago was the Brussels bombing. So I'm on CNN doing show prep. The 5th story down on CNN, number 1 is Brussels, number 2 is Brussels, number 3 is Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. If you want to talk about that, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
5th story down. Here is the headline. Radio star acquitted in sex assault trial. Now, did you hear about that today?
No.
I did not hear about it at all either. So, because I listen to radio all day. So I'm like, radio star. And I'm like, I wonder what Rush Limbaugh did. Or, you know what? Maybe it was Alex Jones. He's a loose cannon, right?
In sex assault.
Yeah, in sex...
Acquitted.
Acquitted, but it just says radio star, right? And I'm thinking of radio stars. Oh, no, if it was Howard Stern, it would say Howard Stern acquitted, right? And I'm thinking all these radio stars. I'm like, you know what? It's CNN. Sometimes they make things kind of like a tabloid to generate clicks. Just like Jay Bilas, maybe he's trying to generate a reaction. So I'm thinking about Talkers Magazine. I read that once in a while. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe it's Bubba the Love Sponge. Because he's been in the news with the Hulk Hogan case. And so I click on the story. My click is one person viewed that story. As soon as I click on, they measure that they read the story. Okay? I'm going to circle the name. You spell it. Have you ever heard of that guy in your life?
No.
Okay? Now again, the headline is Radio Star. He is not in the Talkers Top 100. Okay? Now,
I've never...
The name of the guy was Jian. Is that Wan Jian? How would you even pronounce that? I wouldn't even know. And the last name is Gomeshi, Ghomeshi. Okay? Now, I'm going to say Juan, but that's an I, not a U, and that's Gomeshi, right? I have never heard of that guy before. So I read the first paragraph, thinking maybe he's the producer of, say he's the producer of Glenn Beck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, that's why I don't recognize him, because he's a producer, right? So I read the first paragraph. They said he's really big in Canada. And I'm like, there's no way he's big in Canada, or else I would have heard him. You know what I mean?
I've never heard that name.
And so, again, back to the Jay Bilas premise, CNN is not really trying to tell you the 10 top stories of the day. They're trying to generate clicks for ads. They're like, you know how many people clicked on this story? 1 million people clicked on this story. Nobody knows who this idiot is. You think, when they say radio star, you assume a real radio star.
Yeah, you're thinking Howard Stern or Rush Limbaugh,
right.
or...
And I'm like, this guy's not a radio star, right? And so, again, it's not... If they would have said, instead of saying radio star, they put his name in there, Juan Gomeshi acquitted in sex assault trial, instead of getting 1 million clicks, they get 20,000 clicks. You see what I'm saying? Well, they push their ad rates up that way. And it's like, it's, again, it's intellectually dishonest. And well, CNN would say, well, our ad rates are based on clicks. That's why we put, music star died. Like, and I'll give you an example. One of our first episodes we did was, I think it was Beacon of Speech 2 or 3. Wayne Static had died. Okay? And I love Static X. Okay? But Static X is a real niche group. I wouldn't say they're very popular anymore. I'm not even sure they were popular when I liked them back in the mid-90s, right? But they didn't say Wayne Static dead. It said Rockstar dead at... And then, so instead, you take somebody like the normal person, they're like, oh my God, Bono's dead!
Yeah.
And they click on and they're like, we don't know who Wayne Static is. And again, it's not about reporting the news. It's about generating clicks.
It would be like if I died and they said Rockstar dies.
Well, yeah.
Technically,
from
I was in a band. Yeah.
You were in a band,
No,
and at
literally
one time,
10 people know that.
Yeah. But it goes back to, is your job to generate clicks, or is your job to report the news? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so every time you click on that, not only do you see the story, but you automatically see the ads.
Right.
That are...
Yes, all the ads. So you click on the radio star acquitted, and then all of a sudden, all the ads come up. Well, CNN turns around and say, we got 1 million clicks on this ad. Right? Well, you know how many people read it to the... They can track how many people read it to the bottom, how long you're on the site, because I know that from Beacon of Speech. You can track... who listened to how long. But Beacon of Speech is me and you, yakking it up, right? CNN is supposed to be, we are the news or whatever. It's like, no, you're almost as bad as all these other things, 33 internet fails and you show a girl in a bikini. CNN is literally one step above that at this point. Ted's shaking his head.
Once again, good for radio.
But no, so that just aggravated me. And we're talking about generating clicks. What happened? Now we have the Cleveland Plain Dealer in front of us, right?
Yeah, this is our internet.
This is our internet. And again, number 1 story, Brussels. Number 2 story, there's been a ton of heroin overdoses. That's story number 2. Story 3, council does something, who cares? It's in Cleveland. Deadly shooting, shock, Chagrin Falls. Gary Shandling dies, right? It doesn't say anything about this guy, Juan Gomeshi, because it doesn't sell newspapers. I'm not even sure that Attacks in Brussels sells newspapers. But, I mean, the internet is even worse. I know people are like, what's a newspaper? You'll get a kick out of this. They were showing kids things from like the 80s and 90s, and it was a little internet skit, right? And one of the things was like a rotary phone. How do you use a rotary phone? And the kids are looking and they're poking their finger in the rotaries, right? They're not spinning the dial. They're like, it's not beeping, right? So I tried that with my kids. We went to my parents last weekend, and we went to, see some extended family, right? And I said, hey, do you guys know how to use a record player? And they're like, well, we know of a record player, but, what do you do? I said, well, you take the vinyl. And they're like, whoa, where do you put the CD? And I'm like, no, there's no CD. You have to get a vinyl record. They thought, for some reason, they thought that you put a CD on and then played it, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going on, and I'm like, no, you take the needle, and they're like, well, how do you make it go? I said, well, when you pick up the needle, the record player spins. And they're like, well, how does it know how to spin? I'm like, I don't know. You tell me how the internet works. You know what I mean?
So they wouldn't understand the rock and roll break room at
No,
all.
they would come in here and they look at the rock and roll break room and they're like, we don't get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Actually, I come in here and say the same thing.
But it goes back to your experience of what. And one of the things and I'm trying to put my finger on it when I'm thinking about the CNN story and Jay Bilas, the thing that really seems to bother me at my age is when people say it's all about A and it's really about yourself. It's not about A at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not about sex assault trials. It's about generating clicks. And they're like, well, Fred, welcome to the real world. Welcome to the business world. And I'm like, but your business model is news. Your business model is not generating clicks. When you started CNN in 1984 or whatever, you weren't worried about generating internet clicks. You were worried about reporting the news on TV. You know, me and you could, wax poetically about when they, played videos on MTV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, that's why I don't like MTV, because they say they're music television and they're not. It's just be what you are.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, well, you know how much it costs to rebrand. Oh, well, okay, I'm sorry, I'm the jerk here. You know what I mean?
So in other words, in order to change the name of the channel, it would cost too much?
Yeah, and then people wouldn't identify,
And they wouldn't go to it then.
Right. And literally, even if you hate MTV, 100 million people know what MTV is.
Yeah.
If you rebrand MTV as, say, youth culture, they're like, this is youth culture! Maybe 1 million people hear about youth culture, and it takes them a while to, build the name. And it's just like, the thing that popped in my head, because I'm a soccer fan, is the New York Cosmos. New York Cosmos, they were an NASL team that was insanely popular in the 70s. Well, they folded, and then a new team started, and they're like, we're the Cosmos! And then they folded. And then there was an indoor team, we're the Cosmos! And then they folded. And it's like, it doesn't have, because all these people know the name, people will buy the name for the branding. Even though nobody...
Oh, were the New York Cosmos... Was that mentioned in your movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I brought that up in the movie because Joe Coffin didn't know, in real life, he didn't know who the New York Cosmos were. And I said, how do you not know who the New York Cosmos are?
Is that the one that you said they were like the 85 Bears?
Yeah, yeah. And that's a team with Pele, right? And I always think that certain things cross over. You know what I mean? Like, even if you're not a big baseball fan, we were talking about the Yankees. Everybody knows the Yankees. Yeah. Even if you're not a big football fan, everybody knows the Packers. So there were certain things like the New York Cosmos that I thought translated. And I was just, I was wrong. And that's why I thought it was funny and put it in the movie. My movies is blasphemersthemovies.com. Yeah, so there's some self-promotion. But all Beacon of Speeches is me, you, and Joe. So, and at the end of the day, who knows? You might dump me after episode 20 because I went on a 20-minute rant.
No, that's...
So, but... Oh, go ahead. You look like you have a question.
No, just mentioning Blasphemers, the movie, right, as we're doing the show. It's almost like product placement. Or
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. It's like you're marketing to the 2 people who listen to the movie that nobody watched. It's like 0 times 0. It's like I know.
And the 2 people who are listening were probably in the movie.
In the movie. Yeah. Next thing I want to talk about, the drug war. Earlier this week, I saw on, again, CNN.com, that there's a report, and I don't have the source material, but supposedly Richard Nixon hated black people. And Richard Nixon hated hippies. Okay? And so he couldn't arrest hippies, and he couldn't arrest black people for no reason. Right? Now, again, these are all hypotheses. These are not facts. Okay? According to this article that was on CNN, in order for Nixon to arrest them legally, he started the drug war because he knew that hippies love drugs and black people love drugs. So he started the drug war in order to defeat his enemies, the blacks and the hippies. And the drug war is not real. Everything on the drug war, starting with Nixon, was a way to put hippies and black people in prison. Okay.
Okay, so before Nixon, drugs weren't illegal?
Oh, they were, but there was no drug war. The first time they coined drug war, we need a war against drugs, was with Nixon.
Okay.
And they were specifically, even though drugs were illegal.
And wasn't Elvis made like a...
Right.
Okay.
So
even though he was, as he's accepting the, whatever you want to call it, the position that Nixon gave him, Elvis was probably flying on some prescription drug.
Exactly, because it wasn't about defeating drugs. It was about jailing blacks and hippies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, now, when it was on CNN, they were reporting it like news. Okay?
I'm just laughing because I'm just thinking about what an interesting guy Nixon was.
Yeah, that guy, he had his hands full. He was staying busy. But there was a spoken word album, and it's called Become the Media by Jello Biafra. Okay? And I think it was that. But it must have been 15, 20 years ago. And if I got the wrong Jello Biafra spoken word CD, I apologize. But it was one of the Jello Biafra things where he said that the war on drugs was all about putting black people in jail and all about putting white trash in jail. And I'm like, wow. When I was growing up in school, I never heard that. So when Jello Biafra told me, and he's the old lead singer of the Dead Kennedys,
No, Biafra. That was an African country.
Yeah, that was an African. He took it because the country of Biafra was in the news for civil war all throughout his childhood.
Well, what did that become? What is it now?
Congo, Sudan.
Yeah,
one of those. But so anyhow, so he's talking about this like it's a fact. But I had never heard of this before. So when it comes out on CNN this week, and they're like, oh, Nixon's aide said that it was a reason to jail blacks and hippies. I'm like, well, Jello Biafra told me that 20 years ago, right? And you know who listened to him? Me and 3 other people, the same amount of people who listen to Beacon of Speech. You know what I mean? And that's why it doesn't matter if it's true or false. It has to do with generating interest. It has to do with, can you sell the story? Now Brussels, you can sell the story. Everybody wants to know what's going on in Brussels. But for smaller conspiracy things, now the whole conspiracy Nixon against blacks, it's not really a grand conspiracy. And I have been on the record in my book, I'm going to promote all my stuff today. In my book, American Suicide, I admit that I am prejudiced against Serbians. Okay? Because when I was a kid, a whole group of Serbian kids were mean to me, and I never liked Serbians. Right? But it's not a grand conspiracy. I'm not going to wipe out the Serbian race. Well, it's the same thing with Nixon. He didn't, round up blacks and put them in ovens like Hitler. He's like, I don't like blacks. How can we screw my enemies? You know what I mean? It wasn't a grand conspiracy, just drug war. You know what I mean? So when Jello Biafra's talking about it, I really thought, I'm like, this must be a big giant secret. You know what I mean? And I'm like, he was right, but what does he get for being right all those years later?
Now, he was in the Dead Kennedys?
He was the lead singer of the Dead Kennedys. I went to go see his spoken word 10 years ago. When I went to grad school, I had this weird thing where I listened to Dead Kennedys all the time, and it warped my brain. So, and I wasn't even, the Kennedys, the Dead Kennedys basically started 78, 79. And by 86, they were gone. Well, I was in grad school in the 90s, and I still had this, Dead Kennedys thing spinning in my head. Go ahead.
No, that's interesting.
But so have you, before this week, have you heard the conspiracy about Nixon hating minorities?
No. I've heard of Nixon having an enemies list.
Right.
And I just didn't realize how extensive it was.
He had a lot of enemies.
Yeah. I did not know what you just said. but I knew that Nixon apparently. I don't know. Was he just like paranoid or?
Well, a lot of people said he was paranoid.
Yeah.
But again, you don't know how much of it is real. Maybe maybe Nixon really did think that drugs was a scourge, and he's like, well, we're going to start the drug war, and he just started the drug war because he didn't like drugs, which is fair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It destroyed lives.
Yeah.
So maybe it is a conspiracy that's not true. But it's not a grand conspiracy. I don't think there's a lot of hidden things. He's like, we're going to do a drug war. Some people agreed, some people disagreed. But I guess the news...
Poor Nixon.
Yeah, the news would be that he was specifically aiming towards groups of people. Right? Well, then don't do drugs. Well, I like drugs. Well, then, you see what I'm saying? Now you're starting to draw gray lines. And I'm not saying I like drugs. I'm saying, where's the line? What drugs are okay, what drugs aren't okay. Like today, we talked about marijuana like for a whole hour, one of our first episodes. Is that okay? Is it not okay? They said that, and I didn't know this either. They said that black people liked heroin and hippies like marijuana. Well, I knew that hippies like marijuana, but I didn't know that black people had an affinity to heroin as opposed to white people.
Are you talking back then, or are you talking now?
Yeah, I'm talking about Nixon.
That black people had an affinity for heroin back in the
days of Nixon. Right. I'm like, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
I just thought, well, I don't know that for a fact. I got to qualify this. According to this article, that's what Nixon said. Okay? Now, again, Nixon's been dead for 20 years.
Yeah.
Nixon can't come out of the grave and defend himself and say, that was a lie, I just don't like drugs. You know what I mean? But I had heard these stories before. Jello Biafra he was not that specific. He just said the drug war was aimed at poor people. He said rich people get rehab, poor people go to jail.
Yeah.
Which is true.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
But it goes back to, if you're 6'8", you get a scholarship to Duke, and if you're 5'5", you're going to Tri-C.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I know you're not 5'5". How tall are you? 5'7"?
I'm 5'6".
But you understand what I'm saying.
No, I'm not offended by that.
I don't want you to be
I know
like...
how tall I
You
am.
get off at the end of the day, I'm like, that friend.
When I was a kid, I really loved basketball.
Right.
And I wanted to be a basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
And I always wished that I was taller.
Mm-hmm.
But it really kind of bothered me. It doesn't now, but back then I always wished I was taller.
Did you think you had the skills?
No, probably not.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can overcome anything.
Right.
So...
Well, that's the thing. When I played...
if I really wanted it, I would have overcome it.
Right.
I would have overcome the height problem. But...
When I played soccer, I never thought I have to be a certain height or I got to be a certain weight. In my head, I'm like, if I was just better, I never thought of it physically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas basketball, I'm like, I'm too short to play basketball, and I'm 6 foot tall.
Yeah. I mean, there have been short guys in the NBA.
Right.
Not a lot of them. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, but I mean, they're anomalies. They're the exception to the rule. And all the great NBA players, you can count on your hands how many of them are under 6'6". Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so disingenuous, especially to talk about basketball. And like I said, I like sports where it doesn't matter what your size is.
Mm-hmm.
You're either good or you're not good. Like hockey. You don't have to be big. I remember watching University of Minnesota. The guy won the Hobie Baker Award at the University of Minnesota when I was up in graduate school.
He won the Jim Baker Award.
He won the Hobie Baker Award, and I think the guy was like 5'4", 130 or something. I mean, the guy was little.
Yeah.
And he was one of the top scorers in all of college hockey. And they're like, well, he can't play at the next level. But I'm like, he still was the top goal scorer in the Division I college. That's still good.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that little could never do that in college basketball. You know, somebody would be like, oh, well, 1973, Nate Archibald. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. There's the one exception again. There's always one or two exceptions. I'm talking about, you know, the group.
Tiny Archibald or...
Yeah, Tiny Archibald. When I was a kid, I loved Tiny Archibald. Because I remember watching Celtics games. I'm like, that's my favorite player. I didn't care what nationality he was. I loved that he was the little guy doing really good. I'm like, that's like me. I'm a little guy.
Mm-hmm.
I was little. I didn't grow until, you know, I was older. So.
Well, that's like back in the 70s, the Cavs had Foots Walker. He was under 6 foot.
Oh, really? See, I didn't know that.
Yep.
When I was a kid, my favorite...
I think he was like 5'10 or 5'11 or something. But
when I was a kid, my favorite Cav was World Be Free.
Yeah.
Because he could shoot the lights out, and his name was World Be Free.
Yeah, I remember him.
So that was your favorite, Walker?
Yeah, Foots Walker.
Okay. It wasn't Bill Laimbeer?
No. Yeah, because he started out here,
Yeah,
right?
he started the Cavs, and then Stepien traded him.
Ted Stepien.
Yeah, that guy was a loon. Okay, so let me keep moving. So that's the end of the outline, but I did bring a magazine, and we do have a prediction to go over. So let me X this off. And me and you had a bet. So you start thinking about it now. I always pick a song of the day because I'm a greedy bastard and I never share. So by the end of the day, I want you to think of a song of the day. And that you're naming the song of the day because you won our bet. I bet that our boss would have went home at lunch today, and when we came back at the end of the day, our boss was still here. Because everybody's either on vacation.
But I really didn't guess it correctly. I just got closer.
Well, that's all right, because it's like Price is Right. Whoever's closer, me or you. So one of us have to win.
This is my award, is getting to pick song of the day.
You pick song of the day.
Is there any guidelines for picking song of the day? Or
song of the day is whatever you're feeling that day. You heard a good song. You were singing a song in the van. We're talking about Jay Bilas. So song of the day is Asshole by Dennis Leary. You could do whatever you want. So let me go to the magazine. You don't have to answer till the end. So one of the first episodes we did, I was talking about New Noise Magazine. And I kind of fell in love with New Noise Magazine. I really like it. Now, I saw it at the counter when I went on my magazine buying spree, and I bought New Noise again. And let me tell you why. I never heard of this band, The Falcon, okay? And I still haven't. I haven't checked them out yet. But this band in the corner, this is why I bought it. What does that say in the upper right?
Anthrax, a king-size helping of heavy?
Yep. New Anthrax album is out, and this is New Noise Magazine. Anthrax.
Hey, before I forget, I hate to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
I heard a rumor yesterday, and tell me if you have heard this rumor.
Go ahead.
That Axl Rose is going to become the new lead singer of AC/DC.
I have heard that rumor, but when I clicked on the link, like I saw it on the internet, and I clicked on the link, again, I'm talking about clicks, how many times you click something, and they said, well, no confirmation yet. Every article that I clicked said no confirmation yet, no confirmation yet. I must have read 5 articles, Guns N' Roses are getting back together, but then they still haven't. You see what I'm saying? So again, are you really reporting news, or are you generating clicks? You see what I'm saying? I have heard that rumor. I do not know if it's true or not, Ted.
Okay.
Because the lead singer of AC... Now, these are the facts. Lead singer of AC/DC is Brian Johnson, right? He went to the doctor, and he said... And the doctor said, listen, you're going deaf. If you do one more tour, you're going to be all the way deaf.
How can he listen if he's going deaf?
Well, that's true. So they said, listen, don't go on tour. So he goes back to AC/DC and say, listen, I got this news from the doctor. I got to think about what I want to do, right? Next day, Angus Young and the other members of AC/DC said Brian Johnson quit. and we're looking for a new lead singer. Well, Brian Johnson, hurry up and call. That's not what I said. I said I need some time to think about what my options are, right? And so he went to the press and said, they're kicking me out of the band, those limey bastards, right? And Angus Young is like, oh, no, that's not what he said. He said, I quit, conversation over, and then we had to find a new lead singer. But, of course, I don't believe...
Did Angus Young say he laid himself off?
Yeah, he should have. But Angus Young, there has to be more to the story because somebody doesn't... You work with somebody for 20 years, and they're like, I might have to leave. And then the next day, they're like, okay, I'm ready to replace you. I'm already calling people. You know what I mean? There had to have been something more to it. So
now is the other brother still around, Malcolm, or did he?
Now I'm not a big.
That's his name, right? Malcolm Young.
I'm not a big AC/DC fan. Okay, but one of the members of AC/DC has dementia, and I thought it was Malcolm, but I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah.
So I don't. They said. Maybe he has early stages and medication solving it, or maybe they just don't talk about it. I just know that they said somebody in AC/DC had dementia and they had to make some choices. Well, it's the same thing with, Brian Johnson. I can't hear. Well, I got to make some choices. Oh, no, bye! Don't let the doorknob hit you in the ass. They
don't argue with him or try to get him to stay. Okay.
Yeah, we haven't liked you since Bon Scott, right? So I honestly don't know. But you could be right. You know what I'm saying? But I have not seen any confirmation. And let me give you an example. The Foo Fighters, right? 2 weeks ago, I must have seen 10 stories. The Foo Fighters are either breaking up or going on hiatus, right? And then when they actually came out at the end of the week and made their announcement, they said, yeah, we leaked a bunch of stuff just to mess with people. And they said, all we're doing is taking a break, doing our, hi Joe, re-energizing, and then coming back. They said there's no...
No, that's Dave Grohl, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and that's why I'm like, you never know. You never know what's gossip, what's real, and that's why people say don't trust the internet, because you're trying to generate clicks. You can't go on any site, whether it's news, sports, where they're like, click on the 10 best looking college volleyball players. You know what I mean? Where there's a good, like if you go on trivshow.com right now, or not trivshow, WTAM.com, trivshow, I guarantee you, if we could do it on the computer, there's either a naked girl or a girl on a bikini on the front of trivshow.com.
Yeah.
Okay? Because it's not about the content of the show. He never talks about that. It's all about moving people to your webpage. While you're here hearing the story about Lyndhurst, why don't you look at this girl in a bikini?
Now, a few days ago, he basically, I don't know if he kind of broke in during Rush Limbaugh's show. I'm talking about Trevisano.
Right.
And he said something like, whatever you do, make sure you listen to my show today.
Uh-huh.
And as a matter of principle, I did not. Now, do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea.
So he made it sound like it was going to be something earth-shaking, and I'm like, you know what? He's played this game before.
Yeah.
And the last time he did that, he talked about the contrails in the sky or whatever.
Let me tell you.
And I'm like, I'm never falling for that again with him.
Trevisano.
That to me means he had nothing planned for the show, so he's got to come up with, some...
Trevisano does that about once a quarter. You gotta hear it. The one time he was right is once Art Modell was near death, he wanted to set it straight with the people of Cleveland that he did not... it wasn't his fault that he went to Baltimore. Again, rich people problems, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, now, why wasn't it... Now, that was a great interview, and Trevisano did a great job of A, getting him, B, getting him to talk, right? And C, turning into an entertaining 45 minutes to an hour. It was worth the hype. Nothing that guy ever has done has been worth the hype except for that Art Modell interview, right? But I remember listening to Art Modell, and and again, you didn't hear that?
No.
It was a couple of years ago before he died. He didn't want to move the team to Baltimore. Why did the team move to Baltimore?
Because
according to Art Modell, not Trevisano, Art
Modell. Because he was out of money.
The politicians tricked him.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now, me and you, we're sitting in the rock and roll break room. Okay, how often do we deal with politicians?
How often do we deal?
Yeah, we don't see politicians. Yeah. Okay, Art Modell saying that the politicians tricked him carries no weight with me because you were the owner of the Browns for 30 years. You didn't learn anything about politicians in 30 years. You probably dealt with politicians every single day of your life.
Is this about, did they have something to do with, they said they were going to build me a stadium? And
yes.
Okay. Yeah. So basically it's the stadium thing.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. And that's why Art Modell is another a-hole. Okay? Because they said, we will build you a stadium. We will build it as part of Gateway. Right? And if you know, if you're not from Cleveland, Cleveland Stadium is on the lake. Gateway is about a mile away from the lake. Would you say that's fair? That's where Jacobs Field and the Q are.
I guess.
Yeah. About a mile. And they said, we'll find you a spot. Art Modell said, I don't want to be an afterthought. I want you to build me a new stadium on the lake, right where the old stadium is. And they said, no, we're passing Gateway. Do you want to be part of the Gateway project? He goes, no, I'm Art Modell. And then he turns...
So basically, if he would have agreed to have it built right by, where the baseball and the basketball stadiums are, they would have done it.
Yes. Yes. But he said, well, they're going to build me a crappy new stadium. It's like, oh... So, again, Art Modell said they tricked me, said they would build me a new stadium, and then they built Jacobs Field in the Q, and then they said they had no money, so they tricked me. Well, yeah. You know why? Because you wanted them to build you $1 billion stadium, and they didn't have any money left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he was like, my hands are tied, I have to go to Baltimore, blah, blah, blah. No, you could have sold the team to the Lerner family. No, the politicians made me leave. Again, like his hands are tied. They're the Cleveland Browns. They're not the Art Modell Browns, right? So you could have, if you needed the money, you could have sold the team for $500 million to Al Lerner, and you would have made the money. But he's like, I want to make more money, so I'm going to move it to Baltimore.
Now, this might be a dumb question, but who paid for that stadium that we have now?
Which one?
The football stadium.
Oh, all of a sudden, once the Browns left, Mike White said, holy cow, I found $800 million under this rock. I mean, when Art was here, it wasn't here. But now that he's gone, there's $800 million. NFL, we're going to build a stadium. We want a team back. And they're like, too late. He's like, we'll take an expansion team. And Al Lerner, who wanted to buy the Browns from Art Modell, said, I'll take an expansion team, right? So there was dirty tricks by Modell, dirty tricks by Mike White, dirty tricks by Al Lerner. All of them had dirt on their hands. None of them were choir boys. But they all turned around and said, hey, I'm the choir boy. It was like Al Lerner said, Art Modell tricked me. When Art Modell went to Baltimore, Al Lerner was on the plane who helped him go there. Al Lerner was on the stage when Art Modell said, we're the Baltimore Ravens, right? And so Al Lerner's like, oh, I didn't have anything to do with it. It's like, dude, that video was from like 2 years ago. You can't say you had nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? I'm an innocent bystander. And again, the politicians, they did kind of screw Art Modell. But Art Modell had options. And again, politicians screwing you. Oh my God.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought? When the politicians screwed Art Modell, might have been the first time in human history that's ever happened.
So in other words, basically, Art Modell, if in whatever year he bought the Browns, what was it, 1962 or something like that? If the politicians screwed him that year, then you could say, all right, he has a point.
Right.
But it's the, fool me once, shame on you.
Yeah.
Fool me twice, shame on me.
Somehow 30 million, or somehow, not 30 million, somehow 30 years later, they tricked him.
Yeah.
Hey, those other 30 years, they were nothing but above board with him.
So they turned on him after 30 years.
And when he was with that Trevisano interview, he was bitter. He's like, I gave so much money to the arts, and I gave money to the Playhouse Square, and I gave it to the Cleveland Clinic. I was like, you know what, a-hole? Go back to Baltimore. I can't go back to Cleveland because the fans hate me. Yeah, because you took their football team. They did not randomly pick you out of the phone book and say, we're going to hate this guy.
They're being unreasonable.
Yeah. And again, was Art Modell 100% wrong? No. But again, what makes me mad is he came on the Triv show and said, yes, I moved the Browns, but I was forced into the corner by politicians. My hands were tied. You know what? No, they weren't. You had lots of options.
That's funny.
Oh, so anyhow, we got off topic. Let me go back. So New Noise magazine, right here. Anthrax, A King Size of Heavy. Okay? They have a new album out. Let me flip to the album because I am going to say something nice about Anthrax for the first time in 15 years. So the article is, the Kings of Thrash are back with a new classic. Okay? And here's Anthrax. Now, yeah, Scott Belladonna. Or Scott Ian, Joey Belladonna, I'm sorry. They're not new, okay? But I do appreciate that they're promoting new music. They're not talking about an album from 30 years ago. They're not talking about Among the Living. They're talking about the new album. The last two Anthrax albums were so bad, I wanted to go home and take an ice pick and jam it through my eardrum so I never have to listen to music again. When I was a teenager, Anthrax was either my favorite band or second favorite band or third favorite band. I loved Anthrax. I saw them live in the Headbangers Ball Tour. They were awesome. Okay? So because of New Noise magazine, I went and I listened to the new album. And there was one good song on that album. So I give them credit. At least they made a good song. So good job, Anthrax. It was, I don't even remember the name of it. It was the last one on the new album. The last song on the new album it's really good. But I can't remember last time Anthrax even had a good song. Because Ted, we're that age, you're that age too. The big four. Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, Metallica. And so to me, that's big news.
I wanted to, also wanted, speaking in this vein or whatever. Now, I don't know, believe it or not, I don't know that much about metal.
Right.
But,
I can tell you.
Do you ever watch Bill O'Reilly?
No.
Well, Bill O'Reilly has a guy on his show, I think his name is Jesse Waters.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically goes out and talks to people on the street.
Right.
Well, he was he went to a Megadeth concert, and he was talking to people there, and one of them was Dave Mustaine.
Really?
Yeah.
Dave,
so,
go ahead.
Kind of interesting that Dave Mustaine is on Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
But
I'll tell you what, because I know of the big four, Megadeth they're the littlest of the big four, okay? Anthrax was one of my favorites. Metallica, everybody loves Metallica if you love metal. Slayer, I don't listen to, but I've told you before, I'm scared of them. And Megadeth has got some really good singles, but I can't listen to a Megadeth album top to bottom.
Yeah.
Okay? But because I'm a fan of the big four, I know that Dave Mustaine is really smart. He's a really smart guy.
Yeah.
And everywhere, so I believe he was on Bill O'Reilly because he's really well-spoken and well-read. But yeah, that's weird that you wouldn't think that Bill O'Reilly would seek him out.
Well, I don't think Bill O'Reilly did.
Well,
it's
but you know what
Jesse
I mean.
Waters, his...
But at the end of the day, it's Bill O'Reilly's show. He can slice anything up and said, this guy went to a Megadeth concert, here's a picture, and the story's over. You know what I mean? So if there wasn't interesting content, he would exit from a show.
But it is kind of funny. Like I said, I know almost nothing about Megadeth.
Hello, it's me again.
But just like I watched Behind the Music of Megadeth, and apparently Dave Mustaine, believe it or not, he had a drug problem, right? Drug/drinking or whatever. But it's like when you hear him talk, he's almost like a laid back intellectual.
Oh yeah.
It's just...
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, so anyhow, back to Anthrax. So I bought the magazine. The article was actually not too bad, right? And what I like about New Noise magazine is it's got hard stuff, soft stuff, end of the day stuff. But what I do is I take interesting articles. I used to do this with alternative press when they were good. And if I liked the article, I would at least go and sample the music. I would,
Who's that?
Knockout. I don't even know who that is. I read the article. I think it was very good. Yeah. I don't know who Knockout. Oh, Knockout Kid. See, I don't even know who this. See, what was the song? What was the band that see right here? New Megadeth, right here. That's in there too. And again, back to what we were talking about before. Bands like that move, units. Even though Anthrax is not on the cover, it's this band, The Falcon. So what was the other? I went and I listened to something. I said, this was really good. I'm going to go buy it. But now as I'm flipping through, see, this is horrible for webcasting because I'm trying to find the article that I liked, and I went and said I'm going to... Oh, you know what? I went... this guy's got a new solo thing, Conrad Keeley, but that's something totally different. Not Black Cobra and Entombed. Where was it? Now I can't find it. See, that's what happens. I like the name of this band. I didn't like their music. Yuppie Side, because I actually listen to them. That's an awesome name. Black Wizard. Okay? There's a band out there that I really like, and it's Electric Wizard, and it sounds like old Black Sabbath. It's very satanic, okay? But I feel bad because it's so satanic, right? Well, I'm listening to Black Wizard, and I'm like, Black Wizard reminds me a little bit of Electric Wizard, right? I read the article, and I went and listened to Black Wizard. I'm like, I'm going to download Black Wizard. But now I feel like I'm listening to too much satanic music at one time. But it's that real Sabbathy droning stuff. You know what I'm talking about. You're a musician. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like last night I was listening to Miles Davis. And
really?
Yeah, I was listening to Miles Davis, but not like Kinda Blue back when he was jazzy. Like Miles Davis from the 70s when he was like out of his mind and on cocaine.
Yeah, because he's a jazz guy.
Yeah, jazz guy. Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Do you generally listen to jazz or?
You know what? When I go to sleep, I like to listen to jazz or what was my grandfather? Big band, jazz or big band when I go to bed because you can kind of there's no horrible jazz or big band. It's all kind of the same, right? So you can kind of tune it all and fall asleep. Well, I haven't had the hankering to hear big band when I hear it when I go to sleep, but once I listen to jazz, sometimes I'll wake up the next day and say, I want to hear some more jazz, And Miles Davis, when you think of jazz, you think of Miles Davis. So I've been listening to a lot of him lately. I don't know, there's no Miles Davis in this magazine, by the way. But the point of my story is, it's a really good read. If you get a chance, go buy New Noise magazine, and it reminds me of alternative press when alternative press was good. You know what I mean? It has a real good cross section of stuff that you don't hear on the radio. I'm sorry, I burped and then I looked at Ted. You could look at it, but I don't know if there's too much. We have one prediction. Do you want to do our prediction?
Yeah.
On March 20th. Okay. 2 weeks ago, Johnny Manziel could have been cut at 4:01 because it's the new calendar year. Okay? And then we did the show 3 days later, and they still hadn't cut Johnny Manziel. They didn't know what they wanted to do with Johnny Manziel. Right? So we made a prediction. On March 20th, would Johnny Manziel still be on the Browns? On March 20th. Okay? My prediction was Johnny Manziel would still be on the team in limbo. People would be talking about what are we going to do with Johnny Manziel. I was wrong. They cut Johnny Manziel the next day after we taped the show. Now, Ted's prediction is Johnny Manziel would still be in limbo. Okay? You were wrong. Jim Rome, that day, I wrote it down, said Johnny Manziel would still be with the Browns because the Browns are stupid. I wrote it down. The Browns are stupid. Okay? So me, you, and Jim Rome were wrong.
Yeah.
Johnny Manziel...
The Browns might still be stupid, though.
Yeah. So that's where I'm going with this. So, because we're working on some sports here. So the Browns did cut Johnny Manziel literally one day after we taped this. We taped, I think it was Beacon of Speech 18, and then one day later they cut him. We taped on a Thursday, and then on Friday they cut him.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Now, has anybody picked him up?
Nobody has picked him up.
Has anybody thought about picking him up?
No.
You haven't heard any rumors or anything?
No. As a matter of fact, last week, he got a new agent, the super agent, Drew Rosenhaus. Drew Rosenhaus said there's a bunch of teams that are interested, but they're waiting for the draft to let things shake out, which is code for nobody's interested. You know, just like, you know, scumbag Jay Bilas, right? Drew Rosenhaus is a big, giant scumbag agent, right? So he's like, oh, there's lots of people interested, but we got to go highest bidder. We got to wait for the draft to shake out, blah, blah, blah. Do you know why he doesn't have a job? You know why? Because there's no rush to sign with the Edmonton Eskimos, right, of the CFL. Johnny Manziel will be playing with the Edmonton Eskimos next year. And I will make the prediction, except for I think we already predicted it, that he'd be in the CFL. I think me, you, and Joe, one of our last shows, we predicted it. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll be with the Saskatchewan Roughriders or the Toronto Argonauts. Or is it the Montreal Alouettes? I can't name all 9 CFL teams. But the point is, he's not going to be in the NFL. Why would you pick him up? Now, that leads us to our next story. Johnny Manziel was arguably the biggest, in the last 5 years, other than Tim Tebow, he was the biggest circus for a guy off the field. Not on the field where, you know, people are like, Tom Brady, Tom Brady, Tom Brady. The biggest circus off the field in the last 5 years was probably, number one was probably Tim Tebow. Everybody was talking about Tim Tebow, right? Number 2 would probably be Johnny Manziel. Who would you say is number 3 in the last 5 years? Not for things he did on the field, but for off the field.
Number 3 for things off the field?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm not...
He doesn't get along with teammates. He's getting in trouble. He's cut. He's injured. He's off the field news. Not having to do with anything between the lines.
Are you talking about RG3?
Yeah. Our new quarterback. And I stole it. I stole it from the broadcaster, Bruce Hooley. Right? Bruce Hooley came out, and I agree with him 110%. Okay, I got to give him credit. He goes, we just got rid of Johnny Manziel. You're literally going to bring in the other guy who it's like saying, I'm getting rid of the circus, but I'm bringing in this other circus. Mm. It's a net gain of 0. You're bringing in another circus. And they're like, oh, well, RG3 is better. Well, how do you know? He's had ACL tears.
Yeah.
He might not ever be
He's had more than one?
Oh, yeah. He had one in college, one in pros.
Yeah.
And so you don't know what you're getting, and you're also getting a guy who in the locker room, there's all kinds of stories about how he, like, and not literally, but figuratively, He loved himself RG3. He'd stare in the mirror, didn't even know he had teammates.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what we're bringing over here. And Bruce Hooley goes, you know what, while you're at it, why don't we go ahead, sign RG3, we'll make Tim Tebow the backup, right? And then we'll try and pull Brett Favre out of retirement. He's like, because apparently it has nothing to do with football. Now, I threw in the Brett Favre part, but Bruce Hooley's the one who said, you're literally trading circus for circus. Why don't we bring in Tim Tebow and just make it, a reality show, the Cleveland Brown reality show. And I agree with him. He's spot on.
So are they thinking of having him as the starter?
As of this second, he is the starter. They signed him for $7 million guaranteed on... I got to do the math real quick. 6. $17 million contract, $7 million guaranteed next year. Right? You don't pay a guy $7 million to be the backup, do you?
No.
So they're basically hedging their bets that whoever they draft at number 2 is not going to be ready. Well, you already have Josh McCown, right?
Yeah.
Well, they think that RG3 is going to be a step up on Josh McCown. Yeah. You know what? Josh McCown had like 5 games in a row where he threw for 300 yards. Yeah, bringing a guy in who didn't play last year, that's a big upgrade. Nice job, Browns. So it goes back to what Jim Rome said. The Browns are stupid. Not a lot of people are going on the radio saying, oh, good job, Browns. A lot of people are saying, well, they're rolling the dice. Well, it could work. The coach is a guru. Not RG3 is ready to start again. You know what I mean? And again, RG3, they're like, well, I wanted to go to the Browns. The Browns were the only one offering starting quarterback money. Other teams wanted to bring him in, hey, $5 million if you make the team. And you'd be our backup. You know what I mean? The Browns were the only ones offering starting money. Oh, well, I chose the Browns. Yeah, you chose the only suckers who are going to bring you in.
Now, is it true last year he was with the Redskins, right?
Correct.
And he was backing up Colt McCoy?
At one time, yes. Because technically, Kirk Cousins was the starter, and then he got hurt, and then Colt McCoy was... Sorry.
Fred's getting all choked up. This is too much for him. He gets emotional when he talks about the Browns.
I am so sorry. Something did not go down right. I was having a sip of water. But yeah, so he was the backup to Colt McCoy. Ted, I'm having trouble breathing. Let's tie this up.
Maybe,
Song of the day.
A bronchial spasm?
It could be. Song of the day. What does Ted pick for song of the day?
Oh, geez. Man. Let's see. Wow.
New Noise Magazine is not going to help you out.
Okay.
I'm taking it back from
day. Song of the day.
You could pick some Church of Misery. You won't be picking anybody from there.
How about Church of the Poison Mind?
That's an awesome song by the Culture Club. Church of the Poison Mind by Culture Club. Church of the Poison... And do you want to dedicate that song to anybody?
No, I better not.
Fair enough. I am so sorry for coughing on the speaker. We got to find a dump button. Ted, thank you again for doing this for me, doing this with me tonight.
Thank you for still inviting me.
And we're going to invite Joe. Joe's going to be back in 2 weeks.